touched, I was going to say briefly, but with Noora's last bit, we've touched pretty well. No worries, that's good, it's great. On societal expectations and how they're harmful, but are there any ways or any situations in which societal expectations can be helpful or useful? Noora, you wanna just keep going on that roll?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think societal expectations can be harmful, especially when it's like taken way too far. But for every societal expectations, there's pros and cons, right? Like for example, like once again in Los Gatos, Saratoga kind of bubble, they always tell us that like you have to graduate, you have to succeed, you have to get good grades, you have to live a successful life, which is something good, but like simultaneously I find that if someone like fumbles or messes up or like doesn't get a good grade on like one exam or whatever, it's deemed unacceptable and you are seen as worthless. And I find that like I find that crazy. I don't even know. It's absurd to me, right? And then like that leads to having a depletion of confidence and having a depletion of self-esteem and self-worth, right? Which leads to like things like depression and anxiety and possibly even eating disorders like anorexia, because you are seen as you feel yourself as worthless because others see you as worthless. Like I didn't get an A+ on my AP chemistry semester 1 or whatever, right? Okay, you got whatever, like a C. Okay, you can improve second semester, right? Like that's how I view things, right? Now that I'm able to see that broader picture, but I think especially here in society, like we all aren't seeing that bigger picture. It's hard to see that big picture. It's because we're so focused in the moment that we're not seeing like the world around us. And I feel like that's the issue. I feel like it's harmful, but at the same time, some things can be helpful. This is like only one example. There are so many different things that are super harmful. Like for example, like the woman stereotype, like that's super harmful. Even when it's taken too far, it's also super harmful. Like it's degrading to say the least, right? But it just depends on the situation. And I just gave one that could be helpful kind of in the beginning, not at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Barbara or Julie, do either of you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things that we talk about in the setting that I work in is this concept of black and white thinking. All or nothing. It's all this or it's none of it. You have to do everything this way or, you're useless or worthless or very extreme ways of thinking, right? I think, Noora, that's what you're very much describing, that if you didn't get this A+ in this one thing, that, your entire college career is ruined, or, you'll never get a good job because you won't go to the right college and blah, 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 right? It's all very, very black and white. And the world is definitely not black and white. I mean, you look around us and there's variation everywhere, and there's a whole lot of gray area. And I think that we've gotten into this way of thinking that like there's only one way. What we're taught is that this is what you have to do. You check these boxes and you'll be fine. And that also is not true. There's plenty of people who go through that process, follow the black and white thinking to a T, do the A+ and everything, get the good college degree, and then really struggle to be happy in their lives because, as you said, they don't have that breadth of development and mastery and self-esteem because they've not been working on anything else outside of academics and maybe even career, right? So we know from a neuroscience perspective, and I'm going to get a little scientific on you guys now, that all of those other things that we do support our brain chemistry. All the soccer, the dancing, the engaging in listening to music or developing music or reading poetry or, doing groups with your friends or building things like this webinar or having, being involved in a club, or all the other extracurricular activities that are beyond, outside of plain old academics, contribute hugely to our development of life skills. How do we interact with the people? How do we problem solve? How do we create ideas? How do we execute them and turn them into something live and real? those are skills that we don't always get from AP chemistry or AP history or, you know, Spanish honors or whatever that's academic. So I think one of the struggles is that as a society, we've sort of gone to this extreme of thinking of there's this one right path, and that's the path we all have to follow, and we've completely thrown everything else away.
And yeah, I also wanted to add, so like Barbara mentioned this earlier with the previous question, but you know, like for me personally, I obviously, you know, took a year-long break, and then throughout that, I was able to kind of realize that like, so what, like there's these like false beliefs of like what dancers truly are, and then I decided to like change that and to like rise up, which is why, you know, I'm trying to like get back into it and show everybody that like we're not weak, or like we're not, you know, like we don't have like body image issues and all that. And even now in society too, there's so many more there's so many more different body types that are like becoming, you know, successful ballerinas, or just like, you know, just going into the dancing industry, which is also like a really nice kind of like breath of fresh air that is kind of like happening because people are kind of rising above those harmful stereotypes.
Yeah, I was actually watching on NBC News like last night, and they were having like a little episode about an African American ballerina who kind of rose up and was like, you know, they made me straighten my hair because no frizz or something like that, because she had beautiful like curly hair, and they made her do all these things to fit into the stereotypical ballerina with straight hair who's white. They even made her like put white powder on her to make her skin color like lighter, and I find that so like detrimental. And I'm so happy to see that there are people like you, Julie, that are like breaking that shell, because I feel like that's what we need now. We need break like shell breakers essentially. We need people that like you said, rise up and come to the challenge and defeat it, because the next generation, I feel like, is kind of looking at us and is like, oh yeah, let's just do the same, right? They're going to do the same thing as us, but we don't want that. We want to be the ones that change everything, that change the way that structurally everything was before, so that we can make it better and open for all people, for everyone to just truly be who they are, so that the younger generations, like my younger brother, could just follow along and be like, hey, like, you know what, I like art, I'm gonna major in art, you know, I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna be an engineer, like why would I want to be an engineer, I like art, you know, like just like breaking the shell and just truly like learning to love who you are. And I feel like that kind of just goes back to self-love and that radical acceptance from HAERT, like from the HAERT modules, like that radical acceptance, like accepting who you are and different things like that. Yeah.
It all goes back to self-love. It really does. Pretty much any problem that you're having, if you look internally, it'll just kind of, I mean, it won't just magically go away, but it'll certainly make it easier.
Can I add one more thing to this? Yeah. I love the energy that you guys are expressing about breaking shells and, you know, smashing stereotypes, and this is fantastic, and setting that example for other generations to follow, you know, our younger siblings or, you know, cousins or other people that are just following up beneath, you know, younger than you. And how can I say this without sounding preachy? Let's not throw away the baby with the bathwater, right? So I think the point of this is that change is excellent, and it's important to look and think about, okay, what are these expectations and what are the good things in the expectations? Not just what are the bad things, but also, you know, we have these societal expectations that you're supposed to become an engineer or go into computer science or go into a good job and have a good career and be stable and all that. Well, there's some good reasons for that, right? You know, a life of dance or art is a struggle, and there's, you know, not everybody, it's kind of like sports, you know, to go into professional sports or professional dance, not everybody succeeds, and it's a very hard life. And And if that's what you want to do, you should absolutely pursue it, knowing full well that the flip side of that is that there's going to be a bunch of instability. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And you may not have the same kind of opportunities that somebody else who takes a, call it a safer path, takes. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, eyes wide open, right? Go in knowing the balance of the equation. What good things would come from doing something in engineering? What good things would come from doing something in dance? I mean, that should not be always the comparison, because there's plenty of people out there who would much prefer to do engineering than dance. So I don't want that to sound like engineering is a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, let's not throw out, if we don't like one thing about something, let's not throw out everything about it, because there are other viewpoints or there are other benefits of those expectations. So let's see if we can find a middle ground and be together.
Yeah, absolutely. Winning auctions. Ooh.
Sorry.
Do it, Noora. Do it, Noora.
Okay, sorry. Just to bounce off of what Barbara said, I think in our world, it's hard for, I think, especially adults, I'd say, like parents, for example, to find that middle ground with their kids, right? Like, for example, I have a friend who really, really wants to pursue psychology, right? She wants to be a therapist, but her parents are like, no, you have to be a mechanical engineer and work at Tesla and this and this and that. And I think it's hard to find that middle ground between psychology and engineering. It's really hard. I can't think much of something that would be a middle ground, but I think at the end of the day, I find it hard for kids, especially my age, that want to pursue something so different than what their parents pursued, that there end up being clashes, and they end up fighting, and they end up not having a really strong relationship, which I think is super duper hard. But at the same time, I totally understand that you want to find that middle ground, but I don't know how to do that. I don't know how some kids in these situations at home, how do they do that? How do they find this middle ground between their parents, between what let's say I want versus what my parents want, because at the end of the day, it's the kid's life. They're gonna grow up, right? They're gonna be the ones that are gonna be living for hopefully the next 50 years, right? Doing something that they should want to wake up in the morning and do, and to be happy, right? Not do something because it just gives them money, for example, right? I don't know. I think it's just hard. It's hard to battle inside, let alone battle outside. So there's so many factors involved.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. That is actually the hardest part, is finding that middle ground and walking the middle path between somebody else that has control and yourself who's trying to develop control, right? That's the challenge. And it's not just between you and your parents, because when you leave your parents' house and you have roommates or you find a partner, you're going to have that same struggle. Anytime there's two people that have two different ways of thinking about things and have maybe two priorities that are different, finding the middle path between those two entities that seem like they're totally opposing is always a struggle. So that's a skill of walking the middle path that we have to learn, or that it behooves us to learn in order to be successful in life. So one of the things that we'll be teaching in the HAERT program, actually this is in year 2 when we get more into interpersonal relationships and effectiveness, is that in order to walk the middle path, you have to negotiate, right? You have to figure out what's going to work for all the different parties. And in order to negotiate, you have to understand where the other party is coming from. And typically, optimally, this would be parents, adults, trying to figure out, okay, what is it about psychology and therapy and counseling that drives you? Why are you interested in it? What is it that's, more interesting and curious about that than mechanical engineering or whatever other thing? So that'd be the side of the parent asking those kind of questions and being interested rather than just saying, no, this is what you need to do, black and white. This is what's going to make you successful. And then the flip side of that is the kid saying, teen, young person saying, okay, parent, why is it that you think mechanical engineering is going to make me happy, or is going to be meaningful, or is going to make me successful in life, right? What is it about this one particular thing that you're so hung up on? Is it that you know right now that's how people around you got good jobs and were able to, you know, have a good home and have a good life and support their children and not have to worry about money? Is it that maybe they grew up in a setting where money was actually a real concern and stability was a really big problem? And so they view the world from a less friendly place than what you guys are growing up with, right? You guys have grown up with having maybe more than what they had when they were growing up. And so they're coming from a point of maybe more scarcity. And that shapes their priorities, it shapes what they value. And so being able to have those conversations about why. We have to have a conversation about finding what are those different things that what are the underlying values that we're trying to meet with everybody's decisions, and how do we meet them with variations on the theme.
Right, having a discussion with someone you're disagreeing with, especially if it's about your next steps in life and potentially what's going to happen to your future, is probably worth it.